Welcome, everybody, to Rumble in the Jungle Rematch. I know I asked this before, but since we're officially started now, how many of you joined us last year for the Quick Fields versus Workflow Smackdown? How many of you thought it was the best class at Empower? Yeah. Really? Let me ask again. How many of you thought it was the best class at Empower? That's what I like to hear. So we're going to make it even better this year because we added forms. So, oh, see, be very afraid, Mike Wells.
Oh, no.
So for those of you who haven't joined us for one of these classes before, let me explain briefly how it works. It's, as you probably guessed, for a 4:30 class, it's not the most called Rumble in the Jungle. It's not maybe the most serious of classes, but I promise you will leave learning something. If only that is you should follow Mike Wells on Twitter.
Absolutely. And hold up your sign.
So,
just like that.
Just like that.
This is a good example. Every time
There
workflow
we
is
go.
mentioned, you must do that.
So,
Every time workflow is mentioned, you're going to buy a round? Is that what I heard? Is that what you heard?
Is that what it takes? Is that what it takes?
so this class is for everyone.
No promises.
So, how it's structured is we will have a scenario for each round, and we will battle it out over when we will use quick fields.
Yay!
Thank you.
There you go.
When it's best to use workflow.
Yeah.
Oh, the signs, really?
Yes. It was
And-
a spontaneous gesture of support for workflow.
Really, they just happen to all have
They
matching
just happened.
signs in their
They
bags.
just happened. I don't know. I don't know what happened.
You just don't know. It was just
I don't know.
magic.
Magic.
And
Thank you for your support.
and
Remember,
when
it's
you
paper. We're paperless.
yeah.
No paper.
Right.
1 point.
1
Right there.
point for forms.
1 point. Just one. Just one. Don't get used to that.
Oh, the class is still young, Mike Wells. And of course, when they're best together. So how this works is, computer lags a little bit, so please forgive me. We'll have 3 battle rounds, and then after we finish our battle rounds, we'll have a lightning round where you can try and stump our experts here. And then we'll talk a little bit about where to learn more. So, let's get ready to rumble.
Get the belt.
So in this corner, representing Quickfields, from the great county of Hanover in Virginia, we have Amy Johnson. Amy, you want to say a few words about why you think Quickfields is the best Laserfiche product?
Because, I mean, it's awesome. What more do you have to say?
It's true. It is a product that needs few words.
Yes.
Okay, and apparently that's all you're going to get.
That's all she's got.
And in this corner, representing Workflow,
That's right.
from the city of Chesterfield, Virginia, we have Mr. Mike Wells. Mike, besides the signs, why is Workflow the best?
Workflow is awesome. You can do anything you want to automate with workflow.
Anything, really, even
Anything. Don't try to come up with it. You're neutral. Don't
I am
forget, you're
neutral, but I'm just asking. You could really even do high batch capture with Workflow.
We'll see. We'll see.
You could even fill out a form with Workflow.
Talk to the sun. I love workflow.
Okay. I'm just saying. Let's see what'll happen.
We'll see.
And then new this year, a new addition to the Rumble in the Jungle, we have representing forms, Adam Galvan joining us from Edgewood Independent School District in Texas. Welcome.
Rookie. Already winning.
We really thank him for volunteering to join us for this. We're not quite sure why.
Probably first and last year.
And maybe this, once he beats you, he may decide to come back. Adam, can you tell us a little bit about why you love forms?
Forms is the best. Whatever you need, you don't need no more paper. You can save money, and you can make things more accountability. So, forms is really the way to go.
Okay, so we've got forms, workflow, quick fields, and you may notice we have one more person sitting at this table in a dapper bow tie. And that is our voice of reason. Because you know they wouldn't let me be the voice of reason.
Why do we need reason?
Why do we need reason?
Why do we need reason?
I mean, look at these three people sitting here. We obviously need reason. And that's Zach Buck from Pre-Sales. Zach, anything you'd like to add?
I guess we'll see how this goes. I think it's pretty clear why we need a voice of reason up here.
You know, the guy from last year did not come back. That's all I'm saying. And I don't know the reason for that, but he's not here.
I think it's pretty clear. I think it's pretty clear we need a voice of reason because I'm the referee. So my job in this is to keep things moving, stop any bloodshed, keep any chairs from being thrown, and generally keep things moving. As you probably guessed, this is a highly participatory session. Hooting, hollering, rooting, tweeting, holding up your signs are all highly encouraged. So now, let's get ready to rumble. For our first round, we have an issue of expense reports. How many of you deal with this issue? A few of you? Really? You guys are going to have to do better than that if this is good. How many of you deal with expense reports? All right. So here's our issue, team. Your manual process means that expense reports aren't being processed in a timely manner. Employees hate taping receipts to sheets of paper. Whoever said that, you're on the panel next year. There are delays in approvals, so employees are mad they aren't getting paid quickly. So here are the problems you need to solve. You need to make sure information is provided in a standard format. You need to simplify receipt capture and upload. You need to link expense reports to travel requests or purchase orders, if applicable. And you need to record manager approval and ensure that approval is timely. So, what do you do? We'll let Mr. Workflow Signs here kick it off and see if his solution matches, if he can come up with a solution to match all his promotion.
Okay, so we're talking about expense reports and having them submitted. The first part that we want to hit about all of this is talking about the timeliness. Workflow is great for the part of, for things that have deadlines on them. There's a deadline action for workflow. So I'm immediately thinking about that, where as it's proceeding through the workflow, we have a deadline. So if the approver doesn't approve this request, then it hops out to maybe their manager, their boss, or somebody else to approve it. So obviously, that's one of the great things workflow can do. As far as capture and upload, I actually probably would look, since we're talking about expense reports, maybe even something that's not on the panel at all. Look at maybe using mobile. So capture it with mobile, Our one mobile user right here. Hi, Roz.
I want to inject. He's getting help.
I did say hooting and hollering was allowed.
Yes, it is allowed. Yes, and hold your signs up every time you hear workflow. So I would capture maybe using the product that's not up here. So use mobile to capture the receipts, and then you don't have to glue them or staple them. You can capture them. As far as linking it all up together, that's another great thing Workflow is good for, because you probably have all of those things already in the repository, all of the supporting documents, the other documents. So you can use Workflow to match up the metadata, go out and search for all of those documents and either bring them together in a folder or link them with links. So there are plenty other things that I could mention, but I will.
You'll stop there?
I'll stop right there. Yeah, that's
Okay,
all that needs to be
because I'm
said.
sure that Adam might have something to add that I think is a key piece Workflow might be missing with this process, especially when it comes to linking things up.
That sounds like help.
I'm not helping, I'm just merely
Okay.
pointing out a
Well,
piece.
Okay.
Pointing out a
Forms,
lack in your
you can
answer.
turn around and have the form and have it with the upload your receipts, and you can turn around and upload anything that you need to, expense reports. And from there, you're going to have your process built so that, okay, who does it go to next for approval? So there we need the approval, so that way your manager or someone else needs to approve it. What's also great is with the system, as an end user, you can turn around and check when you turn in the form, where is the process at? The time it was approved, the time it was not approved, so you need to see who's holding it up. And so forms can do all that and still keep everything in the system, and then you can tell it where to save it into Laserfiche.
Okay. Oh, look, we have a sign out there, Mike.
How we do a
Electronically sign the form. All right. Well, okay,
Sure, one more green shirt.
Quickfields. Do you have a response?
I do have a response, because I know a lot of you are thinking there's no way Quickfields can do anything in this scenario.
I think we're done here.
because-
I think we're done.
We are not.
interrupt
We are
you?
not done here. Let her explain.
So, but I think another key piece that could be missing in either solution with forms or workflow is you're talking about capture and you're talking about simplifying and you're talking about a standard format, which are some of I think the key pieces of Quickfields it provides you is that in capturing the information, you have your metadata, you have your templates, you have your tokens, you have ways you can capture the information off of those receipts and off of those forms, because let's all admit it, how many of us have an expense report procedure that's completely digital, where you don't have to fill out a piece of paper? You must not be local government. So with Quickfields can not only capture paper, it can capture documents from file shares. So if you're traveling and you're just saving it all to your device, to a shared drive, it can pull from those ideas. So while the only piece that it really can't do is, as far as I know, is record the manager approval, you could have a field that would capture that information, but Quickfields is not going to track that information. But what Quickfields can do is kick off the workflow, if you have an approval workflow, to be able to
That's right.
get that information on the end of the process.
Workflow.
But the most important part is capturing your information correctly and accurately as it comes in, and that's something Quickfields can do for you.
Okay, now before we have Zach weigh in as our voice of reason, let's take an audience poll. How many of you think workflow is the ideal solution for this scenario?
Yeah.
I don't know, Mike, that doesn't sound too promising.
That's kind of weak.
How many of you think forms is the... That's right. And I'm sorry, I just have to ask, how many of you think
I know.
Quickfields is the ideal solution for this scenario? All right, Zach, as the voice of reason, what do you think?
All right. So I think the reality of the situation is we're stronger when we stand together than when we stand divided.
Who invited this guy?
Me?
Choose your
So-
sides.
For the front end, Forms is magnificent, right? You collect the information on the go. I didn't hear it pointed out, but with the new release of mobile, you can access your forms from the mobile app and submit information from right there, making it easy to take care of this on the go. Because let's be real, when are you filing expense reports? Probably when you're on the go, accumulating expenses. Once that's done, it's great to have workflow pick them up and move them around. Forms can handle the approval process, but when you want to link things together, workflow is a beast and can take care of that for you. The automatic
beast.
naming, the automatic filing.
Beast.
But the reality of the situation is many people can't get away from paper for these processes, you know? And if that's the case, Quickfields is great for capturing that information in a standardized way and providing it to the process to automate the whole entire thing.
Okay, so what did we learn? Quickfields, great for processing standard documents. Laserfiche Mobile, with the new release, you can submit through a form inside the app, which we showed in this morning's keynote, which was awesome. Forms simplifies approvals because also, as you may know, you can actually approve simply by replying to an email. You don't even have to open up an app or go to the website. And then workflow makes it easy to standardize naming, link to existing travel requests and purchase orders. So does anyone want to revise their vote, or do we still think Forms wins this round? We love, oh! I guess I should say, how many of you think Zach wins this round? Okay, well, I guess we'll see what happens
see.
next round.
We'll see.
We'll see. And just in case you're wondering, on the Solution Exchange, we have a couple of these of solutions that actually deal with different ways organizations have solved these problems using a variety of these different products. We have the Muskogee Creek Nation Department of Health, Palm Beach Gardens, and Sanitation District Number 1, which all use a various combination of workflow, forms, Quickfields. So you can review a couple different ways that this scenario has actually been put into practice. All right, so who's ready for round 2? All right, that's what I like to hear. Okay, round 2, invoice approval. Who loves invoices? Who hates invoices?
Yeah.
That's right. Roz, are you just determined to be contrary?
She says yay to everything.
She just says yeah to everything.
You see the Quickfield sign, right?
Okay, we appreciate having a positive person in the front row cheering for approving invoices. So one of the most annoying processes at your office is receiving invoices, getting them reviewed, and getting them approved. If this is not an annoying process at your office, I apologize in advance. Try and think of something annoying that you deal with at work. Your office processes over 1,000 invoices a month. When things get lost, there's a lot of finger pointing. I know you all work in bastions of positivity, and there's none of that happening at your offices, correct? Okay. So try and imagine. So here are the problems you need to solve, team. You have to capture both paper and electronic invoices. You have to make it easier for managers to see and approve them. You have to record the manager's approval. And you have to ensure managers approve invoices in a timely manner. So we're going to do the opposite way and start with Amy this time.
Well, anytime you're talking about batch or a large volume of documents that you need to bring in, whether it's electronic or paper, because Quickfields can handle both types of documents, you really are looking to Quickfields as your answer. It really is the power horse of, I think, the product suite, because it can take all of that information, the documents, process them, pull in whatever metadata you need, assign your fields before you even start trying to track that document. Now, granted, those are activities that workflow can handle and forms can handle, but why not go ahead, get your documents clean, organized, processed with metadata, sent to the appropriate folders, following whatever records retention you have and whatever else you need before you even pull it into workflow. Because then workflow can focus on what it's better at, rather than having to have workflow look up the document and then having to redo your workflow, because you can't just say, change my field and then keep going through. You have to tell workflow, oh, by the way, I changed that field, so now look at your updated field. You can already have all that information updated before you even start and not waste valuable resources on that when you can have it done before you bring it in. So.
Okay, thank you, Quickfields. All right, Adam, what would you do with form? I appreciate the support for Quickfields. What would you do with forms in this situation?
Well, what if you don't have Quickfields, or if there's invoices that are tons of different templates or different formats, so you're not going to get the same invoice from everybody. With forms, you can receive an invoice, capture it up to the form, basically do a lookup on your database, which it's already in the system, so it's got to be there somewhere where the PO or the requisition. So that invoice, all that data is already in your database. When you do the lookup, automatically populate your metadata. Once you're done, you can save it. Then we can say who's your next process in line for approval. So which goes to your manager or someone else to make sure that this item is received or not received, and then come back and then update the information when you're done.
So
With
what about
forms.
the paper?
It's already
Says
in this system.
It says paper invoices.
Yeah, upload it.
Oh,
upload it.
do you need some
I
outlet
don't
for
need
that,
I don't
Brian?
need workflow, and I don't need Quickfields. I can still get it done.
I can upload it. Let's see. Didn't know.
All right, so forms seem simple and elegant. What would you do in this solution, workflow?
This is made for workflow. Right
Oh,
here.
really?
Yeah. So capturing paper, we don't need Quickfields. We've got a Laserfiche scanning. We can take care of that. So we can get the invoices in. We also have an importer for
I'm just
electronic
I'm
documents.
just going to stop you for a second. Laserfiche scanning for 1,000 invoices a month.
Sure.
Really? Anyone agree with him? Think that's a good idea?
Yeah. See.
Oh,
thank you. Yep. Thank you. Free sign for you. Free sign should be in your area somewhere. They spontaneously. Absolutely. Thank you. Yes. Okay. So.
All right, continue.
I love this spontaneous
Since there's been a
show
spontaneous eruption of
of
signage.
support for the beast workflow, as he said. Yeah. So anyhow, so we capture the invoices and put metadata on them. Once they're in, workflow takes care of everything else. So we want to make sure the managers can see them and approve them, so we can notify those managers however we wish. You know, if they want to send them an email, we can send them an email, or we can, if they're already in Laserfiche, just have it show up, and they see in maybe a mailbox sort of format. I don't know if you've seen that. I've seen a couple workflows that way. So you have put a folder for each manager and have shortcuts. So that the workflow dynamically creates shortcuts so they can go and see, oh, here are the things I need to act on. So they can click on each one and act on it. Record the manager's approval, of course, is easy to do. We can record that. I've even used workflow if you want to record and have something sort of like an audit trail, but not not hidden away like audit trail is. Okay, well, no. Say you want to have a record. I'm trying to. How do I explain this? What's going on over here?
You want to check
I
it?
drifted off there for a few minutes.
Okay, something's going on over here.
Time limit.
Simple and elegant. So if you want to have a history of the document as it moves through your workflow, you can have a multi-value field set up, and then as it moves through so when it goes to the manager, you put a log entry in there and say, hey, the manager got it on this day and time, and the next entry is going to be when he approves it or she approves it or doesn't. So you can put that out there. Sometimes it's an incentive for folks who tend not to remember to approve these things, that everybody can see a little log on in the metadata of each document where it has sat and where it's going. If you're not using business processes for that. And then ensure the managers approve them in a timely manner. Again, we're talking about things like deadlines, so use a deadline action, wrap that around each of the steps, maybe even an escalation. So what happens when the deadline is not met? Do you want to send it to somebody else or send them a nasty gram? And you can use that little repeat function to repeat every 5 minutes. So there are ways we have of getting compliance.
I heard a great one. It was if someone didn't comply with approving an invoice, instead of emailing their boss, it emailed their boss's boss.
Ooh.
And within, I think, 2 weeks of implementing that workflow action, it was 100% compliance.
Wow.
You have to bring the pain to the right people.
Wow. Or just copy all.
Copy all.
Copy all. Carbon copy the entire organization.
Mike Wells,
And
not
then
approving invoices.
get your resume ready. Okay, so I think workflow is it is the beast. It is the perfect solution for this.
Perfect solution for this problem. All right, before we hear from Zach, let's take a vote. So who thinks workflow is a perfect solution for this scenario?
Yay!
Okay.
Workflow!
And I appreciate the sign waving, too. All right, who thinks forms is a perfect solution for this scenario? Oh. And who
Support
thinks...
has faltered.
I think maybe
me
you
show
just
'em
did such a
live.
good job explaining it so
It
thoroughly.
took so long, people forgot.
People forgot what Adam said.
Okay, so tell us about Quickfields again.
I would be happy to.
And who thinks Quickfields is a winner in this scenario? All right. Well, Zach, what do you think?
Well, with our powers combined, team, I think we've got a pretty good solution here.
There you go again.
Although
That's an easy spot.
I gotta admit, it hurts to have my words used against me, buddy.
I'm just quoting accurately what you said. The workflow is a beast.
Fair enough. So at the end of the day, there's really no greater product in the Laserfiche suite for processing large amounts of paper than Quickfields. Not only can it process these documents in record time, but it can pull off key pieces of information, like an invoice number, and look up against your ERP to find out more information about it and pre-populate those fields. And hey, whatever it can't pull, it can OCR off. Once you're done with that, you can pass it off to Workflow. Workflow can leverage the information you pulled off of that invoice, link it to the purchase order, make reconciliation easier, make it easier to file, notify the people who need to know that it's time to go take a look at this. Now, if you're dealing with electronic invoices, once again, Forms is a fantastic front end. And I do want to point out, little known fact, from the mobile app, when you go to upload a picture, you click the browse button, you get a camera. So you could take pictures of those invoices to file them if you really wanted to.
Yeah, we do that.
Mobile. I think mobile's the real winner here.
Wait a minute. There's no mobile up here.
For the really energetic approvers on the go, you can pull out your mobile device and approve those invoices from, I guess, home if you really wanted to. What? Yeah.
Yep.
And I do want to point out, one of the things that you mentioned, Zach, when we were working on this, is that forms was maybe not ideal for this situation if we're starting in the middle of a process. And I believe Adam had an opinion to the contrary when we were reviewing these slides. So Adam, would you like to add a few words about that?
Oh, basically just saying that as what we do in our district is with the invoices come in, we do a lookup. So the database is there. You can auto populate everything where it goes to. We still got to use workflow in the back end so we can attach it.
Thank you.
But you can use
Thank you.
forms, and we probably put out maybe 1,500 to 2,000 invoices. But in a school district, those forms are coming in, it's easier to type it in for the end user. It was easier to set up, didn't have to talk about it too much as we did in workflow. But they all do work well together. But with forms, there's so much, when you're already used to doing forms, and as we do a lot of forms, it just makes the end user easier to see it. They just know they go open that form, attach the invoice, type in the PO, automatically fills everything on the metadata, and then send it off.
Well, see, we only talked about workflow so much because there's so much it can do.
Okay.
It's got so many features.
We have a question. How do you attach the invoice?
When you're receiving 1,000 invoices a month, how do you attach an invoice without scanning them through a mass scanning process?
Well, because when we receive them, sometimes we do have to scan them, but usually when we receive them, as we push all our clients and vendors to send them through an email, when we receive them, we just go to the form and we just upload to the form. And in that form process, we follow through for who's supposed to take care of it afterwards.
Okay.
But
and
either way, again, you can't really move forward unless you scan and do things like that, so.
And I think we have a question in the back, too. I see someone with their hand up.
Okay, so question about the forms not being ideal for starting in the middle of the process. Now that, a couple of things, with 9.2, there's an inbox, and we can also pre-populate form values with metadata values. So if you use quick fields on the front end and then fed that into a form for the approval process, you would reduce your licensing costs on the other end because you could use authenticated users as opposed to actual licenses, and then it might make sense to have the invoice attached with the form and the metadata for approvals, and then you give them an interface, it's a forms interface, as opposed to having to go through, we have a lot of clients who push back against, for some reason, changing a template field from a pull down to approved is hard. And so by giving them that web access, they can also do it on the fly, through mobile and using the forms application. And so I'm wondering why the Laserfiche position is not ideal for doing that, since we've got the functionality now to be able to give that interface for a rapid approval once you've got the rest of the paper-based application.
All right, Zach. Why was that the laser? I'm gonna
I
just
think she
throw
was
this
a-
one back at Zach.
I think she was a plant. Excuse me, ma'am. How much did he pay you? Nothing?
So you're right. That does work out well. The tricky thing is pushing the information back to the form, but it's doable. To be honest, I would probably do that with a combination of quick fields and workflow to construct it and feed the information in, because you can pass that information through a URL. You would have a beautiful interface for approvals. It'd be easier to get user adoption and should speed the whole process up. Approvals work great through forms, and especially with the mobile interface. Not that I'm intentionally trying to plug it, but it is pretty cool, It does make life easier.
Okay, so now you see the beauty of the Rumble in the Jungle is that we actually change our position right here based on ideas that come up from the audience. And okay, we'll take one more question and then we'll save the rest for the lightning round. So whoever's back there, just one of you, whoever asks me first, I can't see because of the light.
Well, we have a client who uses forms they let their vendors or suppliers submit forms in paper, invoices in paper, so they have to upload, fill in the information. So basically, they're getting them to do all the work. And then the dynamic lookup in their accounts package, so when you type in the amount, it does a lookup and pulls their purchase order number and matches it. So it's completely forms.
Completely formed. So there's another way of doing it. I think the beauty and why I love teaching this class every year is, there's a million ways to slice the apple, and there's something that works for everyone. So there's a solution that's entirely through forms, requiring suppliers to submit only electronic invoices, doing a dynamic lookup against the database, and matching invoice numbers. So, I don't know, should we call this one a draw? What do you think, audience?
You got to poll the audience.
Audience wins. Okay, I like that. How many of you think the audience wins this one? And for some examples from the Solution Exchange, we have how Mark Anthony Group processes invoices with Laserfiche. In fact, Ray will be teaching a class here at Empower about how they developed a mobile approval app using the SDK. So I highly encourage you to attend that class. And a few other examples with quick fields, workflow, and forms that you can take a look at to get some ideas. We'll let the audience win yet again. So our last round is hiring a new employee. An issue or a situation fraught with approvals, paperwork, all sorts of things going on. So, team, hiring a new employee is a time-consuming process. You've got job requisition forms and application materials that can get misplaced, so your hiring managers get upset. HR gets upset at hiring managers because they don't always follow up in a timely manner. Paper recruitment files can contain hundreds of pages of references and other supplementary material. So, here are the problems you need to solve. Make the job requisition process faster and less error-prone. Make recruitment files easier to review. Ensure hiring managers respond promptly. Manage employment contracts. The file and the employee must each receive a copy. And ensure retention periods are properly applied to job applications. So since there's a lot of steps in this process, I made you a handy diagram. I am not a graphic designer, so that's the best I can do in PowerPoint. So let's start with forms this time.
The rookie.
I don't know, he's doing pretty well. I wouldn't
All right.
be too
Well,
sure there.
forms is really nice because of the fact that you can have that form there, so the outside user doesn't have to come to your campus or company. They can fill all the forms out from the outside, populate everything that they need to inside there. Once it's done, depending on the job or where it's located, then in the process you can make sure it goes to the right manager. And once they're done with that, they can turn around when they come in and they're selected, the manager selects them, they come in for the process of onboarding so they can get hired. When they come in, you can have everything in that system with them to just automatically fill. So it's still there, your other forms that you need, excuse me, W-4 or something that they need to. You can also use the mobile app, let's say Adobe Expert, PDF Expert, and that's what we do. We have an iPad. We have them sign that document, and then through Laserfiche Mobile, we dump it into the system from there, so it gets routed that way. And that's for a new employee. And at the same time, we also do new contracts, and we already go ahead and send them out an email, and then they can receive it off their iPad. So everything's a one-time stop with forms.
Okay, go forms. All right,
Excuse me.
workflow.
Okay.
Do you have a rebuttal?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I should not have
Absolutely. You
doubted.
should not expect otherwise. Well, this is a nice long-term process. We'll see. We'll see. Hopefully not that long.
Try
but
and sum it up in
I'll
less
sum it
than
up.
5,000 words.
That's a lot of words. We'll see. Okay. Well, one part that I was thinking about through this and for those of you dealing with this, and especially the part that talks about the retention criteria, look up, and I know it's on Solution Exchange, there's a couple other places, the transparent records management, the solution. Look it up because it's, I can't tell you all about it, but basically you're going to have a set of files, all of your documents. So we're talking about a lot of different types of documents. We're not just talking about one form, but we have lots of different types of documents through this process. They're going to have different retention criteria depending what type of document they are, but you want to also keep them together, and Workflow lets you manage that beast of a process and keep the files together, so you can generate those shortcuts as they need to, and then make them go away as they need to. It also handles the entire business process right here, but you have lots of cases here that we've been talking about earlier. So the document moves to a step, and you have to email somebody and wait for their response. Maybe even multiple people. If there is a committee for the hiring decision made, it may not just be one person. So with Workflow, you can send that to multiple people and wait for all of them to respond, or 70% of them to respond, or in the affirmative, of course. So Workflow does all the heavy lifting, since it's a beast. and let you take care of the entire process like that, and in the end, give you the documents in their retention criteria ready to go and march their way to destruction.
What about the beginning part of it where the hiring manager fills out the job requisition form?
Well, we'll write something for that. Maybe we'll use forms. I'll say maybe we'd use forms. Forms
Someone better tweet that
Missy,
right there and attribute it to Mike Wells. Maybe we'll
I will not
use
claim
forms.
that. Oh, Roz is over there tweeting already. So, well, I do notice that. I just want to point out that Forms does have an activity that says send to workflow. And there's no such activity on Workflow. Workflow doesn't need to send it off to Forms.
Is that?
Once Workflow gets it, it handles it.
I thought Workflow could send it back and forth.
Thank you. The voice of reason agrees with me.
Yes.
Uh-oh. And immediately we have a feature request. The info center can take care of that.
I'm just saying, I could think of scenarios where it would be useful.
I think that's kind of what she was talking about there too, going back from a workflow or around. And Anyway,
Okay,
I've expended my words.
thank you for taking care of that in less than 20 minutes. Amy,
Well, I just want to start out by pointing out that just the name alone should give you a clue. It's called Quickfields. So when you want to process
what I
it
call it.
better and faster, you use Quickfields. Because the beauty of it is that it's a much simpler product to use. Your sessions, when you design them, while they can be very complex, they're very simple to create. With workflow, it can get very complicated. There's a lot more steps involved, a lot more time taken creating your session. So while workflow is powerful, Quickfields is really designed to take the document, process it, get it done, so that your scanner operator doesn't necessarily have to know everything about the document. They just need to get it through cleanly. And so in this case, there's a lot of the steps, and I'm not going to necessarily go in order, but there's a lot of the steps that Quickfields can handle. First of all, filling out your job requisition form. Again, there is a push towards digital, and I think Forms is a great solution. My ego is not so big, I can't admit that there's another product that can help. So I think if you have that capability where you can require a digital submission, Forms would definitely be the way to go. But as you can tell, I'm in government, so we still have paper. We're very slow to adopt, usually, technology. So there's going to be a lot of cases where either you can't force that out on people. Maybe you're in a county like we are that's rural and they don't have high-speed internet. They don't have DSL and that type of thing. So you have to provide paper for them to be able to handle that process. So you're going to bring that application in. You're going to have your template assigned. You're going to have your document types, which drive your retention policies. You're going to be able to put it in the right folder that it needs to go to. And then from that point, once you're done processing it and cleaning it up, then you can pass it off to workflow to route it as it's needed. But I think the bulk of it is handled in Quickfields because you can handle the retention policy, you can handle filing it, you can handle bringing it in, getting it to the right place so it can be reviewed and forwarded as needed. So it's all about, all the tools can do anything really, and this is something we talked about before. It's just which one is the best one for the job and the best one for you in your processes.
Workflow.
So as much as we can get up here and say, oh yeah, ours is the best, it really comes down to what's the best for you.
okay. Well,
Right.
who thinks Amy's words of wisdom won this round? And how about Forms or Workflow? Oh, sorry, guys. So far we
Crickets.
have the voice of reason, the audience, and Amy's words of wisdom. So clearly things are going according to plan. So, voice of reason, what would you do in this scenario?
All right, so let's look at this a little bit differently. Instead of looking at the process, let's look at the people who are involved. Let's say you just got hired at this company, your company, okay? You sit down to go fill out paperwork. What feels better? You sit down at a desktop terminal, fill out some piece of paper, or they hand you this nice shiny tablet and say, hey, could you read this form, please, and sign it down here at the bottom? It's pretty great, right? Makes your experience better, makes you feel better about the company. Let's look at it in terms of the records manager now, okay? At the end of the day, they need to make sure that the files are where they need to be, right? They want to be able to know that these retention schedules have been applied and that when it comes time for disposition, it's handled, it's filed. So workflow can pick up this information and file it away automatically, create shortcuts for the managers that need to approve it, and make sure that the user has a copy in their folder, so 6 months down the line, they can still refer back to these documents, okay? How about the poor HR manager who has to scan in the paper that we really can't avoid? Well, QuickFields can simplify that, pull the information off, make it easy to file. How much time will they save not having to scan and type in that metadata, right? I think the real question here is, why can't we all just get along?
I think that really is the question, isn't it?
Who invited this guy?
Me?
Oh.
All right, so in case you were wondering about how some of our customers have solved these problems, we have some solutions on the Solution Exchange. Breckenridge Grand Vacations, how they use Laserfiche forms. We have Steinhoffels, who is also teaching here at Empower, how they took their HR department completely paperless, and there you are, right there in the front row. And this is one of those solutions that I read on the Solution Exchange and talked about like everywhere in the office for like a week because it was so freaking cool. So I highly encourage you to go to the class, read the solution on the Solution Exchange. I mean, seriously, they're using workflow HTTP web requests to actually, once you fill out a job requisition form, to automatically post it to job sites like monster.com.
They're
It's
using
so
workflow?
cool.
They're using workflow.
Yeah, they're using workflow. But they're using forms too.
We're using it all.
Yeah. We have how the Muskogee Creek Nation automated their HR processes with Laserfiche, the city of Mount Pearl, and how they recruit their new employees with Laserfiche. We have onboarding new users with Laserfiche workflow, including making sure everything is set up when a new employee starts, using mobile, and streamlining employment with Laserfiche forms. So before we start our lightning round, I think it's pretty clear that the real people that won today are not QuickFields, Forms, or Workflow, but all of you. So are we in agreement? So give yourselves a hand. And now we have a little bit of time, about 20 minutes to do a lightning round. So if anyone would like to try and stump our experts, feel free to come on up to the mic, and we will take your questions.
Bring your sign.
Do not bring your sign. Or if you just want to leave early so you can get ready for the special event, we won't be offended.
Our first victim.
Oh, we have one.
Volunteer.
All right, first volunteer.
We started with Laserfiche back in 2000, and back then, we didn't really know how to do our template. And now so many new things have come out that we'd like to totally switch our template, but we don't want to lose all these old documents with the old information. What's the best thing to use to migrate to a new template?
Amy, would you like to take that one?
I would love to take that one, thank you. QuickFields, it's maybe a use of it some people don't think of, but it's really great when you have to reprocess a bunch of documents. Because using Capture Engine, you can actually pull directly from your repository. And I've done this before. We had, unfortunately, when we first started, people aren't as careful as they need to be. And so I discovered a ton of documents that were just completely processed wrong. So what I did was, I actually used the search function in Laserfiche, found the documents, moved them into a folder so I could just point QuickFields to that folder, and then used QuickFields to reprocess them. Because when you pull using Capture Engine, you tell it what information you want to pull. So not only are you pulling the image, you can pull the metadata that's with it, or any images, the OCR, anything that you've already processed. So you're not going to lose any of your information. And then when you pull it in with your new session, you can assign the new template, assign your tokens. There's lots of things within QuickFields. There's some pre-classification processing, I think would probably be good for that. I'm looking at Zach, so what that does is it kind of lets you organize some things before you actually process the document. Then, of course, there's post-processing that you can do to save some of your time. So if for some reason maybe you wanted to re-OCR it for whatever reason, then you can do that. I will say that there are ways you can preserve it, but the only thing you're going to lose is your original processing information. So because it reprocesses it, it considers it a new document. So if that original information were necessary, then I would, when you pull that information over, capture that possibly in a new field as
Yeah.
Yeah, you use the audit trail, sort of, the old audit trail stuff, because it's a brand new doc.
But it's quick, it's efficient, it works really, really well, so.
Yeah, and you can do it for workflow too. If you have workflow, you can do things like that. I'm just saying, it's almost the same process for either of those sides of things, of changing the fields over. If you want to use quick fields to bring them in and reprocess them, bring them back out, or workflow, you can point it at something and bring them through. And then usually I'll have a way, I'll set up workflows that make the repository self-managing. So when the fields change, the documents just move to where they need to go. So you set that up first, and then either way, if you use workflow to change it, or if you use quick fields to change it, or forms to look pretty, but either way, once you fix, because you already have the fields in there. So then once you've changed them and removed them or whatever you've done, then they just move to where they need to go.
And one of the other reasons why I would recommend quick fields is that because depending on if your process has maybe changed a little bit, or maybe you want to capture some new information, you still have all your capture tools. One of my favorite is pattern matching. I love pattern matching. I don't know if you've ever done it, but by looking for either certain text or certain patterns, say like the social security number is the easiest example. It's always the same. So you can tell quick fields, when you find this pattern, pull that information out for me. So it's kind of a zone OCR, but the difference is it's not like physically looking in one space, and if your form gets off, you don't have to worry about the fact that it's skewed a little bit. It's looking at the text of the document. So, I was telling someone earlier, I used pattern matching to change a session where I had multiple errors every time I ran it with zone OCR, and when I did it with pattern matching, I had no errors because of the accuracy and the speed, and it speeds up your process as well. So. The great thing about it is not only can you reprocess to your new template, if suddenly you find out, oh gosh, we'd really love to capture this information, you can pull that as well and have it all together in a nice shiny new document.
It's also good, pattern matching is good if you're looking down the road of auto redaction.
Mm-hmm.
You want to find socials and redact them automatically. So.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could we combine quick fields to forms and workflow? Maybe quick flow or quick form?
You guys laugh, but what actually won the SmackDown last year was Quick Flow. So it was the
Quick Flow.
power
Yeah,
of
there
Quick
was no
Fields and
forms yet.
Workflow combined. So it's definitely been a popular suggestion. Future request. Stop by
Combine
the
all the
info
products.
center and register that request.
One product called Laserfiche product. That's it. You buy it, it gets everything.
Yeah.
It does everything. Yeah. They don't call it Rio now.
One product to rule them all. We have time for one more question. I see one in the back.
We have a situation where we're bringing our NRD department is bringing in several thousand documents from a file outside of Laserfiche.
Did you say your anarchy department?
Yes, no, NRD, Natural
Okay.
Resources Department.
Just checking because it sounds like an appropriate title for that department.
And what they're doing is they're bringing in the hunter tags and the hunter fishing tags. And the older files have different applications than they have now currently. And all of the applications are on paper, and they cut them out of a newspaper.
Oh.
And yeah, so we need to bring those in, and then from future going forward, they also have to put in, they have to route it to the person's name, and then they have to route it to a year, and then they have to route it to whether it's an application or a violation or some other thing. They have like 7 or 8 things that they need to label it under. And then whether or not the person has given their hunter tag to somebody else to hunt for them.
I'm afraid there's going to be another and then coming.
There is.
It
And
really is
then
the
it has
anarchy
to go in
department.
both files. What would be the best way to handle that?
Quick flow. Quick flow. Because
She's going to start it and hand off. And
yeah, anytime you're talking about large amounts of paper, you really want to use quick fields because it's going to automate it for you. It's going to make it quicker. It's going to capture all that information for you on the front end, and then when you pass it off to workflow, all that information is going to be available to workflow. So then it can pass to through however many versions and iterations, and whoever has to check off on it and that type of thing. And then it sounded to me like you said it had to go to both, so it has to go 2 places.
Yeah, the ones where people have to give them over to someone else. If they can't hunt for themselves, they can give the tag to someone else to hunt for them. Then that tag has to go in both places, in both people's files.
So what you
And they're all handwritten, by the way.
yeah. Can you tell it's government again?
Handwritten from the newspaper.
Because with what Mike was talking about with transparent records management would be a part of that is because you never want to have 2 complete copies within your repository. So you can use workflow to create a shortcut and move it, you would have to pick where you'd want it to go. But then it kind of lives in both places, but it's really only live in one place. Is that, so you really would use both
And you're
together.
looking at, and there's things, so you're talking about workflow, and I'm going to talk about QuickFields, which is just bizarre. So
Have we stepped into opposite land?
we have for this one question, but yeah, and you're going
It
to
really is
probably
anarchy.
need somebody, to get into this because Amy might have done some of this, but using some of the forms pieces of that where it can recognize this is the form or this is the, which version of the form you're using and line it all up. Because you're dealing with the newspaper and copies and faxes and stuff, and cleaning it up and all that image stuff is going. You could write something. The wild card I didn't pull out is workflow lets you write with the SDK any action you want to. So you can do that. It's not going to be the best tool if you've got QuickFields to do that. So instead of reinventing the wheel, but you could use that to like have the 12 versions of the form you got and determine which one it is.
I see an objection from the back.
And he's aiming at me. I'm in trouble.
You can't capture handwritten stuff.
True.
So all of your
Oh, yeah, no,
capture is, and I don't know your process yet, but it sounds like everything's handwritten, right? So
That's true.
all you can really do at this point is you're going to bring them in. You're going to have to find some way to reference that entity. I'm assuming that they've already been put into some database somewhere, maybe.
They were scanned in on a copier and just put in a folder.
You're kind of going to have to key a piece of metadata on your own for each one, and then start a workflow or maybe QuickFields to look up and then populate the rest.
So I think the
Exactly,
real
yeah.
solution here is unpaid intern.
Yes. That's the winner right there. Yep.
I kind of object to your objection.
Uh-oh.
So, you're right. Handwritten forms are a nightmare. But QuickFields can still make the process easier, especially if it's a standardized form. It's really easy to overlook zoom fields, which is such a simple feature. But you can direct people to exactly where they need to look. When they click on that field, it'll zoom right on into where that information is, making it easy to process. Let the human do the reading of that awful handwriting.
Unpaid intern.
Absolutely. But use...
It's still, you're going to have one QuickField session, right, to process all of those.
Depends on the number of forms.
Right, well,
yeah.
I think you
Well,
said.
you
yeah.
have
there's a
document
ton.
classification within QuickField, so it doesn't have to be just one form. You can have it be, you can process different types of forms within a session if you want. That's not our common practice. We tend to try to keep it one per, because I think it's easier for our scanner operators. But it still allows you that ability. And the other thing is that I want to say with QuickFields, even though in this case you're not automating a lot of it, QuickFields is still giving you a lot more tools than, say, Laserfiche scanning is going to give you. Laserfiche scanning is good, and it's good for what it does. But, QuickFields is just going to give you some more tools to be able to handle that horrible, documents that you're going to be looking at. And so while QuickFields is automating and making things easier, sometimes it can help you with just a one-on-one. That person's going to have to sit there and read it, key in information, but they're doing it all within, one package. And so that's why I think even though you're not making it faster and automating and being able to pull that information off, it still can really, really help you with that
And you
process.
still might use like a lookup, for instance. If you've got another
Right.
database and you type the guy's name in and it pulls up all the other information or social
Yeah.
or something,
Yeah.
some reference for that.
Yeah, the name of the game with handwriting is just make your scanner operators as comfortable as possible. Make it as easy as possible.
And a feature
Nice
request.
music
You need the
playing in the
handwriting,
background.
the handwriting recognition module feature request.
Hey, I can tell you,
Stop by the info center, drop off your
Info
feature
center,
request
yeah,
to
yeah,
Maruna.
yeah.
I've seen some pretty good handwriting tools, but if you think that's gonna handle it, just wait till you see my handwriting. Even people can't read that.
That's why we don't let you fill out hunting licenses.
True story.
So let's thank you for the great questions for the lightning round. And thank you all of you for hanging in here all the way till 5:30. Give yourselves a hand because it's a long day. So I wanted to point out a few resources for y'all while you're at the conference. Some classes you might be interested in, including BAS 111, taught by Mr. Mike Wells tomorrow. Elementary, My Dear Workflow.
Please
Solve the mysteries of your first automated process. So if you're thinking about workflow, you want some tips about how to really get into automating processes, it will be a great class to attend.
And quick fields and forms. I will talk about
And
all
then
of them.
at home, some CPP courses to look into. Don't forget Laserfiche Answers, Laserfiche Solution Exchange. Stop by the info center, pick up copies of Quicker, Better, Safer. And please fill out your course survey if you enjoyed this course, or even if you didn't. That way they won't bring us back for a third year. And if you have any questions, our contact info is on the screen, and we really appreciate all of you coming and being such a great audience. So let's give them a hand.
Absolutely.
And Melissa, I just want to say one thing.
Yes.
I mean, as much as we have fun and get up here and fight with each other, how awesome is it that we have a suite of products that we can argue about which is better to solve our solution? So,
Yay, Laserfiche.
I agree. Thank you, Amy. Well said.